Hello everyone and welcome to the second video in my beginner's guide to Europa Universalis 4. One of the things that I struggled with when I was a new player was how the heck do I make money in this game? So in this video we're going to talk about the three basic forms of income. You can always get a brief economic snapshot by mousing over your treasury up in the top left. For a more detailed breakdown, you'll want to open the economy overview under your country view. So, the three basic forms of income are taxation, production, and trade. Taxation is the most straightforward of these. Basically, every province that you control is going to pay you some amount of tax revenue. So if we open our province overview, let's go to Lyon, because it's a nice big province to click on. We can see that we're getting 0.35 ducats per month from Lyon. So, how do we increase our tax revenue? Well, we could spend some of our administrative monarch power to develop the administrative side of this province, and in this case, we would gain 0.07 ducats in tax income. Another way is if we go to buildings, you're able to build a church and then later upgrade to a cathedral. This increases the tax modifier in that province. So if you want to figure out which provinces are the best for building churches and cathedrals in, well, the game does it for you. It's super simple. You click on that, and the game is going to tell you the current amount that you're getting in tax revenue, and then how much building a church there will increase it per month. The general rule of thumb that I use in the early game is I'll build churches anywhere that's going to give me at least 0.1 ducat per month. Later on in the game, if I have a lot of extra money, I'll go through and find provinces that'll give me at least 0.05. In provinces that give less than this, usually I find other buildings to be better. Keep in mind, any given province can only have a certain number of buildings based on its current level of development. So, in this case, we can have 4 buildings. We unlock our next one at 20 development. If we went over to Galicia, for example, we can only have 2. And those building slots can go pretty quickly as the game progresses. Alrighty, second form of income is a little bit more convoluted, but not nearly as complicated as trade. It's production. So, every single province is associated with a trade good. So if we click through a few different provinces, you'll see that down here, they have different trade goods. Each of those trade goods has a value. This value will change over time as the game progresses. Some are going to be worth more, some are going to be worth less. From there, your province has a certain number of goods produced, which is right down here. The number of goods produced along with whatever trade good you're producing goes into a formula, and it tells you how much value you're getting from production in this province. So the more goods you produce and the more valuable those goods are, the more you're going to get out of that province. Additionally, if you improve the diplomatic production of a if you develop diplomatically in the province, you will increase your goods produced and you'll gain trade power, which is pretty cool too. So if we were to develop Lyon using our Diplo points, we would gain 0.4 ducats in trade value, and we would gain 0.02 ducats in income. This trade value is actually going to go into that trade node, and I'll explain that breakdown in just a minute. So how do we improve our production income outside of developing? Well, if we go back to our buildings, we can build workshops and later counting houses, which are the upgrade to the workshop. That's going to increase the production efficiency in that province, and it works just like the church, although rather than taking the tax modifier, it hits the production modifier. Additionally, manufactories will increase the number of goods produced. So if you have a province that has a particularly lucrative trade good in it, you could increase goods produced and increase production efficiency and kind of double dip on that income. So the most complicated of the three basic forms of income by far, because I don't think taxation or production are all that complicated, the formula of having production be goods produced and the value of the trade good is a little bit less obvious than taxation, but Trade, very complicated topic. I'm going to cover the basics of it here, just kind of how does it work. If you're an advanced player, you probably already know this. Well, you probably already knew production and taxation as well. So I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of trade. That'll probably be a video of its own at a later time. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to switch to our trade map mode. And it's going to change the world, and you're going to see all of the trade nodes that are in the game. I said it's going to change the world. Really, it's just going to change the overview on the map so you can see the trade nodes. The world stays the same. So, every country has a home trading port, which is denoted by this little box thingamabobber, whatever that symbol is. It is possible with the right expansions to change where your home node is, but I'm not going to cover that in this video. So, within the trade node, there's a value associated with that. So this 6.2 ducats, or right here we can bring up the complicated overview. This is the total value in this node. That comes from a combination of all of the production in this node, which would be the local value here, which if we mouse over, you can see what does each province give this node in terms of value. Additionally, we have trade flowing into the node from elsewhere. And if you see all of these pretty little arrows going around, this denotes the direction in which trade flows. This cannot be changed. So if you take a look over at Genoa, for example, there are only arrows leading in, and a little bit of EU4 lingo, this is called an end node. That means that trade only flows into it, no trade flows out of it, and these nodes tend to be particularly valuable as the game progresses because money just comes in, no money's leaving it, and that's a good thing, right? So, we can also see that in our home node of Sevilla, we're losing 1.98 ducats worth of value. So let's break down how that happens. So in a node, any country that is participating in trade in that node, which is denoted by this pie chart, all these beautiful little colors, it shows who all is participating in this node and what percentage of the trade power do they have. So, two things you want to keep in mind. A node has a value associated with it, how much money is in the node, and then a total amount of trade power in that node. So to increase trade income, you want to increase the value of the node as well as increase your percentage of the trade power in that node. Because you could make the node worth 1,000,000 ducats, but if you only have 1% of the power, well, I guess 1% of 1,000,000 is still a lot. If you have 0% of 1,000,000, that's nothing. So, to increase your trade power, you can do a few things. First of all, you could build buildings like the marketplace, which are going to increase the trade power in a province. So as long as that province is in our home node of Sevilla, we're going to increase our trade power in Sevilla, which is going to give us a bigger piece of this pie. Additionally, we could use light ships to protect our trade. This is going to just give a flat boost to our trade power in this node, so it increases our chunk of the pie. Or we could send ships to privateer this node. Privateering is going to decrease everyone's trade power, including our own, and then it's going to give us a chunk of that back. And it works kind of basically like looting a province during war. One thing to note is that you can actually privateer nodes that you're not participating in, which is an interesting way to perhaps screw over your rivals. Plus, if you privateer your rivals, it gives you a boost to your power projection. But that's a little side note for the video. So, basically what you want to do, if you're wanting to make a lot of money off of trade, is you want to get as much value in this node as possible by improving the amount of goods that are produced in that node through like your workshops, developing diplomatically, etc., like we talked about a minute ago. And you want to get a lot of trade power by taking provinces that have natural boosts to trade power, and building marketplaces and that type of thing. So once you have a node nice and secured, what you can do is you can use merchants to do what's called steering trade. And that basically takes use of these arrows. So we have a merchant in Safi, and he is currently steering 1.14 ducats worth of trade value into Sevilla. So if we were to increase our trade power in this node by conquering some provinces, or conquering them and then building marketplaces, or sending light ships over here, that means a bigger chunk of this pie over in Safi would get sent to Sevilla, and hopefully in Sevilla we have a lot of trade power, thus a high percentage of us controlling that node, we'd get more and more money. So one of the mid and late game techniques that you can use is find like a chain of nodes that are all connected to your home node. So for example, we could go from, let's just say Genoa is our home node, because that'll make this example a little bit easier. So for the sake of this example, Genoa is our home node. We're collecting there. One thing I just remembered, and I want to point out, you're always collecting from trade in your home node, even if there's no merchant present. Having a merchant present collecting from trade in your home node gives you a little bit of a trade power boost, but it's usually not enough to be worth it. So Genoa is our home node, and it's late game. Maybe we have 5 merchants running around doing merchanty things. What we want to do is, let's see, Genoa connects to Sevilla, okay? Let's send a merchant to Sevilla and have him transfer trade power into Genoa. All right, step 1 done. Now, what is Sevilla connected to? Well, that's connected to Safi. So let's send a merchant in Safi to transfer power from Safi into Sevilla. Then we can go down the line some more, and let's say, there's a node over here. Well, there is a node over here, but let's just say we're able to access it. Currently in this game, we can't. But we put a merchant in this node down here. He transfers from A into Safi, Safi to Sevilla, Sevilla to Genoa, etc., etc. I think you can get where I'm going with that. Basically what that does is, as each merchant is present in a node, they're giving a boost to that node. And so every single time you're boosting it, it's like a compounding effect. You're sort of generating money out of thin air, I guess, but it's really just within the mechanics of the game, where you're transferring this much, and then it comes to Safi, that merchant makes it that much, transfers it to Via, makes it that much. Ultimately, it comes to Genoa, where you collect from it. So the important thing to note is that when you're setting up that large trade train that's just gonna fill your coffers with the ducats, is you want to make sure that whatever path you have planned out, you conquer provinces that give local trade power boosts. You're building marketplaces in there. You're using your navy wisely to protect your trade. That way you're able to move all or most of the value from those nodes down the line. Because if you don't have a lot of power somewhere, you're not going to move that value down the line. It's not going to benefit you very much. So that's our brief, or hopefully somewhat brief, trade overview. It is a complicated enough of a topic that there's a whole tab denoted or dedicated to trading. There's things like trade efficiency, trade steering, global trade power, mercantilism, privateering efficiency, etc., etc. Basically, all of these things are going to improve either how much you get from trade, how far you can trade, how effective your merchants are at steering things, etc., etc. If you want to look up a breakdown of those, there's a great breakdown on the EU4 wiki. So I'll quickly go over the final little ancillary sources of income in the game. Gold is a really good one. Castile starts with La Mancha, which produces gold, and they just mine the gold and you melt it down and make coins out of it, or whatever they do in this game. It just gives you a straight boost to your gold income. Gold provinces are particularly good if you want to develop them diplomatically, because as you can see, if we were to develop La Mancha with our diplo points, we'd get a large or pretty sizable boost to our monthly gold income, 0.66 ducats a month. I mean, that's even more substantial than building a cathedral in Sevilla. It's almost twice as good, actually. So that's very lucrative, is if you can conquer places with gold and capitalize on that. We also have things like our vassals pay us money. We can get subsidies. Other countries can pay us subsidies. This will happen usually like if you are fighting the enemy of a big nation and you're a smaller nation that might be struggling economically. They'll be a bro and help you out and give you some money. Spoils of war. So every province has a certain amount of loot that can be taken, and you just station an army here and they're able to loot that over time. Larger armies can loot more at once. If you just have a 1k stack in each province, you're going to loot very slowly. So once you have a place fully occupied, if you want to get that loot, send larger stacks in there to eat it up. War reparations. As part of peace deals, you're able to force countries to pay you some of their income. And this can be a lot of money over the course of that time, particularly if that country has a lot of income. You can hire your army out as condottieri. I don't necessarily recommend this for new players because you're probably going to be struggling managing your manpower anyway. And if your army's off fighting, they're going to take casualties and thus have to get reinforced. Another really nice way is during peace deals, you can just force people to give you lump sums of money. This is particularly lucrative later into the game when the AI might be sitting on, I don't know, over 10,000 gold, and you can just get a huge chunk of gold out of them. There's a lot of nations in the game that tend to be pretty rich late game, and so even just declaring a war on somebody relatively weak that has a lot of money, and I'll show you how to find that real quick. So you'll want to open your ledger, which is either hotkey L or it can be found down here. Go to the country section, and the first option under that is country. It'll show you how much money every nation has in their treasury currently, and you can sort by how much they have. It also tells you their income. So if you're looking for somebody to beat up for some money, you can pick either a high income nation and take war reparations off of them, or you can look at a country that has a lot in the bank and just take a lump sum from them. Or, a lot of times, nations that have a lot in the bank also have a lot of income, so you can take a lump sum from them and force them to pay you war reparations and get some nice double dipping action going on there. Alrighty, I think that's all that I wanted to cover in this video. Hopefully it will help you guys be able to make money, get your buildings rolling, hire some mercenaries to win wars for you. And as always, guys, have a good day. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments.